What's up, YouTube? Capital G here, checking out even more Gravekeeper support coming out of Soul Fusion, and I have to say this support is actually quite impressive. If you guys remember, I did discuss the new Fusion monster Gravekeepers are going to be getting, Gravekeeper's Esper, really briefly, and it was an okay card. I thought it was like a B- card. I think the best effect of it was really the Scarm effect, which got you any Necrovalley or Gravekeeper's card during your end phase. It wasn't bad at all. I thought that it was a little clunky to, possibly have the fusion summon unless they were going to get like an ancient gear hound type monster that had a fusion effect built into it, or to get a fusion spell. But I do think that this new support for Gravekeepers is actually very legitimate. I did not expect this many good cards, and I feel like Gravekeepers are moving in the right direction. Now, we knew we were going to get at least 3 monsters because of the promotion art that Konami showed off in certain stores, but they're actually giving us some spells and traps as well. The first card is actually a Rhoda with a nice little bonus effect for Gravekeepers. This is something they definitely needed. It's called Throne of the Necrovalley. Keep in mind, since it has Necrovalley in the name, it is searchable from the Fusion Esper during the end phase. It's a hard once per turn, and it says you can add 1 Gravekeeper's monster from your deck to your hand. Okay, so it's a Rhoda for the entire archetype. Shit, we'll take that. Now, it also says immediately after this effect resolves, normal summon 1 Gravekeeper's monster from your hand. This is absolutely amazing. Not only are you getting a consistency card, because really the only Rhoda that you had in the archetype before was Gravekeeper's Recruiter, right? That was like the only main way of getting to like any monster that you wanted to for the most part. This gives you that, and it also gives you a way of getting monsters on board. I talked about that in my other video. I said Gravekeepers need ways of actually getting monsters on the board. The only special summon they have was really Gravekeeper Spy. It's a flip effect, so obviously it's slow. Everything else is just slow ass normal summons, and they definitely need this to be able to get field presence, especially when going second. Next card is actually my favorite card. I don't know how people are going to feel about this, but I fucking love this card. It's called Sanctuary of Necrovalley. It's a continuous trap. The first effect says if there is a Gravekeeper monster or Necrovalley on the field, all monsters your opponent controls lose 500 attack and defense. I'm going to explain why this is so important, right? This is actually an effect that people might not think is big. This is actually really, really important, because if you have Necrovalley on the field, your monsters are gaining 500 attack. If you now have this face up on the field, your opponent is losing 500 attack. That is a difference of 1,000. Like, you being able to bridge the gap of like 900 attack by just having those 2 cards on the field, that's pretty damn important, and it gives Gravekeepers the ability to kind of be like a beatdown deck, like a legitimate beatdown deck. If you're talking about a 900 gap that your opponent has to make up, that's really significant. Second effect, and my favorite effect of this, because I think it's Soul Troll and very useful. It says during either player's main phase, if you do not control a card in your field zone, you can activate Necrovalley from your hand or graveyard. Now let me tell you why this is so important and why this effect is actually ridiculous. Number 1, this is not a hard once per turn. Number 2, this allows you to get it allows you to get Necrovalley straight from your graveyard. If your opponent happened to destroy your Necrovalley, they're like, oh, fuck this, Cap. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to Nightmare Phoenix your Necrovalley. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to flip over my Sanctuary, and you know what I'm going to do? Since I don't have a spell in my field spell zone, I'm going to get my Necrovalley back. Oh, you're going to MST it? Okay, that's fine. I'm going to get it back again. People might not realize this at first, but you can activate this effect 15,000 times in a turn, because apparently there is no limit on this. It essentially makes Necrovalley unkillable while it is on the field. I mean, I guess you could banish it or you could spin it back to the deck, but the fact is you can also do this during the battle phase. So if your opponent wants to attack you, you can wait. You can activate the effect to activate Necrovalley from your hand. There is no replay, as monsters are not leaving the field. You're just activating a field spell. Your Gravekeeper monsters are gonna gain that 500 attack. Your opponent's gonna lose 500 attack. Like, I love this card, man. It gives you so much utility, especially considering there used to be a lot of times where Gravekeepers would like suffer if they lost all their Necrovalleys. If they were destroyed, they really wouldn't have like a win condition at that point. This gives you the ability to get your Necrovalleys back pretty much infinitely. The last effect says if this card is destroyed by an opponent's card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can you can set 1 Necrovalley spell/trap from your deck except Necrovalley. This is really good because if your opponent is smart, And instead of trying to take out your Necrovalley, they decide to go after this card. Okay, well, basically it floats then. So if you happen to destroy this card instead because you're sick of me infinitely setting my Necrovalleys, that's cool. I'll just go ahead and I'll get my Throne, I'll get my Rhoda. I'll just go ahead and I'll get my Infernity Barrier straight from my deck. And since I'm setting it and not actually adding it to my hand, you can't Ash Blossom that. So that's pretty good. Next up, we have the two monsters. The first is Gravekeeper's Priest. This card is really good as well. It's a level 3 Dark Spellcaster, 500 attack, 1500 defense. Its effect is a hard once per turn. If this card is summoned, and it's an if, so it can't miss timing, special summoned or normal summon like that, you can target one level 4 Gravekeeper monster in your graveyard, special summon it in face up attack or face down defense position. This effect cannot be negated by Necrovalley. If that wasn't built into it, this whole thing would be useless because Necrovalley would negate its own effect, and that would really suck because Necrovalley is the heart and soul of the deck. Okay, so this is basically like a wolf bark for the deck. It only works one time, but it can't miss timing, and I like the fact that you can set your cards since Gravekeepers are obviously flip based. Now, it does kind of suck the fact that you can't get Gravekeeper's Recruiter, but as far as I can tell, that's really the only card that you can't get. Or I guess you can't get another copy of Priest, but being able to set Spy, that's legitimate. I would definitely consider running this card. I think this is a really good card to summon off of Sanctuary, to summon off of your Rhoda, or excuse me, not Sanctuary, but to summon off of Throne, to summon off your Rhoda and then potentially just go +1. Like, I definitely can dig that. And then the final card is something that I expected. I really expected them to get a fusion spell, but maybe Konami thought that that would have been kind of clunky, so they built the fusion spell into the monster basically. Gravekeeper Spiritualist, level 4 Dark Spellcaster effect monster, 1500 attack, 1500 defense, hard once per turn. If Necrovalley is on the field, you can fusion summon one Spellcaster fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion materials, including this card. Alright, this card is pretty cut and dry and very direct and straight to the point. This is basically polymerization built into a monster. I don't love the fact that I have to have Necrovalley on the field. I feel like I should just get that without any strings attached, but whatever. I do think that this card, if you have Gravekeeper's Recruiter at your disposal, is actually pretty good, because think about it like this, right? Think of it as you normal summon Gravekeeper's Recruiter. It's going to be a card that you're probably still running 3 copies of. You activate your Throne, you get your Rhoda effect to search out your copy of Spiritualist. You then use your additional normal summon, and then you use those 2 monsters to summon your Esper. Okay, well, not only is your Gravekeeper's Recruiter going to float, so you're not losing any advantage really in this exchange, but then Esper during the end phase is going to give you that Scarm ability, and then you're going to be able to search another card, and that's pretty damn good being able to search 2. I do think that it also helps you unload your hand. Gravekeepers, since they only have really one way of getting extra monsters on the field, which is the Throne, this can kind of be a way of getting a really big monster on board if you just happen to be stuck with a whole bunch of monsters. Also gives you things like, you know, Gravekeeper Steal, just being able to get 2 Gravekeepers from your graveyard. It gives you like immediate use of those 2 monsters where you can't get them both out of your hand in one turn. So I think it's an okay card. I personally would probably just run 1 copy since Gravekeepers do have, like, you know, multiple Rhodas now. I don't think that, well, they have 3 Rhodas now because I'm forgetting about the fusion monsters. So I don't think that you really need more than 1 copy, especially with Steel, as you can get it back from the graveyard. So let me know what you think of this new Gravekeeper support. I think that it is actually very legit. I do believe that they could use another boss monster with like some type of removal. That would be pretty good. Maybe another fusion monster, but this is actually something to build on. So whatever do you guys think, leave it in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already, and turn on that notification bell for daily videos.